I love this speech because, as someone who has studied African American studies, literature, but specifically the work of Black women preachers, this speech rhetorically is really interesting to me. She was a very smart woman. She was a very clever woman. She knew how to turn a phrase, but also how to turn an argument back on somebody who would have been trying to discredit her or to make out like what she was arguing wasn't important. And so for me, this speech is really, I think it's funny. It's also really empowering to hear it from the mouth of a Black woman. As a formerly enslaved person, Sojourner Truth demonstrated that women's rights was not just about white women. It was about all women. She had emancipated herself. She had walked away from Northern slavery. One, she was a tall woman. She was a visibly Black woman. There was no ambiguity about her ethnicity. Also, she was enslaved in New York, and she was of Dutch origin. And so the sound of her voice would have been quite distinctive as someone with a Dutch accent, sort of a Dutch and Northern New York accent. She had been exposed to Christianity pretty early on through her enslavers. And so she was a really interesting mix, I think, of different cultures and also of sort of different sounds. She would have been somebody, I think, quite formidable to look at physically and to listen to. May I say a few words? I want to say a few words about this matter. I am a woman's rights. I have as much muscle as any man and can do as much work as any man. I have plowed and reaped and husked and chopped and mowed, and can any man do more than that? I have heard much about the sexes being equal. I can carry as much as any man, and I can eat as much too, if I can get it. I am as strong as any man that is now. I think Sojourner Truth begins this speech very early, saying, I am a woman's rights, because she wants people to look at her. She wants people to look at her body. She wants people to look at her skin color. She wants people to look at her sex. And she wants them to see that she represents women. That if we have heretofore been thinking only of women's rights as white women's rights, she wants people to listen to what she is saying, but also to look at her and what she represents. And she wants to be able to represent perhaps a whole group of people that might not have been visible at that convention, that might not have been in large numbers at that convention. In fact, what we know is that there were very few Black women that would have been there. It would have been mostly white women. And so to say, I am a woman's rights is to say, I also represent the concerns that we're talking about here that might get overlooked, that might be seemingly invisible, that might get swept under the rug. She, in her body, she represented what it would look like to be an American, to be someone who should be listened to, someone who was fully human, someone who had intelligence, who had wit, who had the ability to think very clearly about so many issues that were facing all kinds of women. As for intellect, all I can say is, if a woman have a pint and a man a quart, why can't she have her little pint full? You need not be afraid to give us our rights for fear we will take too much, for we can't take more than our pint'll hold. The poor men seem to be in all confusion and don't know what to do. Why, children, if you have women's rights, give it to her, and you will feel better. You will have your own rights, and they won't be so much trouble. I can't read, but I can hear. I have heard the Bible and have learned that Eve caused man to sin. Well, if woman upset the world, do give her a chance to set it right side up again. The lady has spoken about Jesus, how he never spurned women from him, and she was right. When Lazarus died, Mary and Martha came to him with faith and love and besought him to raise their brother. And Jesus wept, and Lazarus came forth. And how came Jesus into the world? Through God who created him and a woman who bore him. Man, where is your part? But the women are coming up, blessed be God, and a few of the men are coming up with them. But man is in a tight place. The poor slave is on him, woman is coming on him, and he surely is between a hawk and a buzzard. This version was really important to me when I learned about it many years ago. It was not the version that I was taught in school, and the version that I read and that I learned about was called Ain't I a Woman? And grammatically on the page, it looked like somebody who probably would have been a Southerner. It seemed very stereotypical of what we might think of as the language and the sound of an enslaved Southerner. And in fact, that was not the case for Sojourner Truth. And so when I learned about this more accurately transcribed version of the speech, it made more sense to me that somebody like Sojourner Truth would have sounded like a Northerner. And for me, it sounded more like what I would sound like. And so for a Northern Black woman who was interested in rhetoric, in Black rhetoric, I was interested in a more accurate representation. I think this version of the speech is more of an honor to Sojourner Truth herself, a way of paying homage to her legacy. I would like students who are thinking about who they are becoming and what they can contribute to the world to think about somebody like Sojourner Truth, who emancipated herself from slavery, who believed in her own power, who believed in her own voice. I would like students to know that they have similar power, that they have a voice, that they have the ability to speak, to sing, to write, to create, and that if they see conditions in their neighborhoods, in their communities, in their families, in their countries, in their world that they live in, that they can use their power, just like Sojourner Truth did, to make a difference and to make changes. Sojourner Truth didn't wait for somebody to give her permission to speak and to begin to help other people. She was, in many ways, a philanthropist without a lot of money. She was a social activist without a formal platform. She was somebody who saw injustice in various spaces and began to work against that injustice. And that's what I want students to know, that they have that same ability, that they don't have to wait for somebody to give them permission to try to make a difference and to do good in the world. I think that it's important for us to remember that we have wonderful examples that we can look to from the 19th century. Black women who were speaking and writing, who give us a way to think about various kinds of conditions and circumstances that we are still actually facing today. And yes, we can look to contemporary examples, but I think it's really important for us to remember women from the 19th century, Black women from the 19th century, who many would have called disenfranchised, marginalized, maybe even disempowered, who thought about their conditions and began to speak and write about them. I think that we should never forget the women that came before us who can be inspiration for us today.